The team behind Google Tag Manager has released a completely new version of the preview and debug mode, which is now known as Tag Assistant. And for some of you, this might be confusing because there is also a Chrome extension called Tag Assistant. But which one is which? Are they connected? In this video, I will walk you through the feature set of the new Google Tag Manager preview and debug mode. Make sure you stick around to the very end of this video because there are many nuts and bolts that you must be aware of. Also, if you want to stay up to date with Google Tag Manager, consider subscribing to this channel. So, let's dive in. I know that this video will be watched by people who have been working with Google Tag Manager for a while, but also it will be watched by total beginners who are just starting with Google Tag Manager. That's why I wanted to make the first part of this video as a general introduction to the preview and debug mode and what are the benefits of it. So if you're already familiar with that, feel free to skip to the next chapter of this video where I show how to actually work with the preview and debug mode. You will find all the timestamps in the description below the video. When it comes to working with Google Tag Manager, here is a very rough workflow. When you work with Google Tag Manager, you configure some tags, triggers, and variables, and then if you want to make those changes go live, then you must publish the container. When that happens, your tags are activated on a website and they start measuring your website visitors' engagement and so on. However, this process might be very risky because what if some of the configurations are not working properly? How can you make sure that your tags are actually firing when they are supposed to? And that's where the preview and debug mode comes very handy because it allows you to check your Google Tag Manager container before all of your changes are actually published on a website. And the best part is that you can do that like in a sandbox, which is basically within the boundaries of your browser. This means that when you do some changes and you test your setup, this is happening only on your browser and your visitors are not affected. And when you make sure that your setup is actually working properly, then you can publish the container. And now let's take a quick overview of the benefits of Google Tag Manager preview and debug mode. And after that, we will see how it works in action. First, you can see which tags have fired and which ones didn't, and you can do that on a very granular level. For example, if a visitor clicks a certain element, you can see which tags fired on that click and which ones didn't. Then you can also find out why certain tags haven't fired or maybe why they actually fired. For example, maybe you have a form and you want to fire a Google Ads conversion tag when that form is submitted. Now, with the help of preview and debug mode in Google Tag Manager, you could do that quite easily because you can just see which conditions were met and which ones were not. That way you can find out where is the problem. And the most obvious reason is that you can preview your changes before they go live. So, for example, if you add 10 new tags, triggers, and variables and you want to see how they work, you don't have to publish that because if you publish something incorrectly, your entire tracking setup might not work. But with preview and debug mode, or which is also known right now as Tag Assistant, you have a much better chance of not breaking your setup and not messing with your data collection process. And now let's take a look at how the preview and debug mode actually works in Google Tag Manager. When you make some changes in your container, for example, let's say that I have now added one page view tag and also I've added an event tag that will fire an event to Google Analytics when I click any link in the menu of the website, and I want to check how that works. To do that, you first need to click the preview and debug mode. And when you do that, a new tab will open, and the domain of that tab is tagassistant.google.com, and this is the new experience of the preview and debug mode. If you ever watch some older videos or read some older blog posts, you might see screenshots that show some orange banner appear in the interface. So right now, from this moment, that is not the case because from now on, that orange banner is gone. This is happening because the entire experience of the preview mode has changed. So when you click the preview mode, a new tab opens right here. And now you need to enter the address of the website where you want to test your Google Tag Manager setup. In my case, this is the domain. Also, you will see a checkbox right here. By default, it should be enabled. What will happen is that it will add a certain URL parameter to this address. And thanks to that parameter, Google Tag Manager will know that it should enable the preview and debug mode. Now, if your website does not support the URL parameters, I mean some custom URL parameters, then you should disable this one, but it is highly recommended to keep this enabled in all the other cases. So when you do that, you need to click Start and you will see this loading bar. And now another window has just opened with your website that you are actually previewing right now. The fact that this notification appears right here, this means that you have just enable the preview mode successfully. So this means that debugger is connected. And also if I minimize this window, you will see that we see the word connected right here as well. And of course, this success message here also shows that we have enabled the preview mode successfully. Now, if you click continue right here, you will see the event stream right here and 4 main tabs right here. So technically speaking, one of the main differences between the new Google Tag Manager preview and debug mode and the older one that you might find in some blog posts or videos is that this one is relying on the first-party cookies and local storage, while the previous one was depending only on third-party cookies. So here's the deal. The entire debugging process will be happening between 2 windows. The one is the preview mode, and the other one is the actual website where your debugger is enabled. So let me show you. For example, right here, I can click on the menu. I can click right here. And what will happen is that that click appeared right here, and then the page reloaded. And if I, let's say, go to another page, you will see one more click right here, and then we see another page. So what is happening right here is that every page view is now grouped like this. So during this recording, I made 3 page views. So the first one, and here are the events that happened on that particular page view. Then this is another page view. And finally, right now I am on a product list page. If you are familiar with the older version of the preview and debug mode, you know that refreshing the page refreshes everything that was in the preview mode. But that is not the case anymore, because right now we see all the page views and all the information is persisted. So for example, right here, we can click on the event, which is container loaded. So this is like the earliest moment when Google Tag Manager container loads. And then you can see what was pushed to the data layer, what tags fired, what were the variables, what were the values in the data layer at that moment. And then I can also access the information, let's say, 2 page views ago, 3 page views ago, or etc. Previously in this video, I mentioned that I have a Google Analytics event tag that sends an event information when a visitor clicks any menu item right here. And one of the link clicks was actually right here. I made this click on the previous page. So what I could do is that I could actually click this link and see what happened in Google Tag Manager on that particular link click. And we see that there is one tag that fired on this particular click, and that tag is the one that I expected to fire. This is menu link tag, and if I click it, I can see what kind of information was sent to Google Analytics. If you want to switch to the actual values, you can do that by clicking values right here, and you can see the tracking ID, the event action, event label, and all the other information. Also, you can see the conditions that were met. Right now in this trigger, there were 3 conditions. Actually, there were 2 conditions. This one is kind of like more technical one, and you don't have to care about that. And in this case, we care only about the first 2. So the first one is that the event was supposed to be link click, and I actually clicked the menu item on the website. And then there is another condition that click classes, I can switch it right here, that click classes must contain this information. And if I switch to values, we see that this click classes value of that menu item actually contains the one that I am looking for and the one that I have configured in my trigger. Because if I go to the trigger, you will see that my condition is click classes contains this particular value. When you switch between one event on a page and another, you can also check how the variables are changing between each event. This helps you better understand whether certain parameters and certain variables were available at that moment in the preview and debug mode. Because for example, if you want to send some event about the login to Google Analytics and that information about the login is still not available in the preview mode, you can check that right here. Also, just like in the older version of the preview and debug mode, you can see the data layer tab. So you can check what kind of information was in the data layer and how did it change with each interaction on a page. I am not going to dive deeper into what a data layer is in this video, but if you want to learn more, I have a blog post and I will post a link to that below the video. And then when you choose any event in the preview mode right here, you will see a section which is called API call. So this displays not only data layer pushes that happen on a page, so this means that some information was pushed to the data layer, but it also will show you some other interactions that are happening on a page. For example, G-tag calls. So if you want to see more information that was in that particular call, you can just click right here and you will see all the information that was added, for example, to the data layer, or maybe what kind of information was sent with the G-tag call. If on your website you have not only Universal Analytics Code and Google Tag Manager, but also let's say you have the new version, which is Google Analytics 4, then you will be able to debug that as well by switching between, let's say, the containers or the properties right here. So if you see a container ID and you see this icon, this means that this is a drop-down menu and you can switch between multiple instances that you want to debug. So for example, in this case, on my test website, I have my Google Tag Manager container, but I also have implemented the new Google Analytics 4 property. So if I click it, you can see a little different view. First of all, you will see some different interactions. And if we go to the summary, you will see not the tags that were sent, because right now we're not previewing the Google Tag Manager. Right now, we are just checking the new Google Analytics 4 property. And in this case, there are 3 hits, 3 interactions that were sent directly to Google Analytics 4. This means 2 page views and 1 user engagement, because probably I have enabled some automatic tracking as well. I just don't remember that. Therefore, there is no tags or variables tab. There is just hits sent, what was in the data layer, and then the errors tab. And let's say if I go right here and on the page view, I click on this tag, I can see all the information with some friendly names for those parameters. And I can see everything that was sent to Google Analytics 4. Once you finish the testing process and you're sure that your tags fire when they are supposed to, then you can go back to Google Tag Manager and click the submit button right here and choose publish and create version, and then click publish. Of course, it is highly recommended to naming this version as well, because in the long run, it will be easier for you to identify what kind of changes were implemented with what kind of version. To exit the preview mode, you can go back to that window that opened after you enable the preview mode, and you can click on this X icon right here. So this will stop the debugging. And when you do that, let me take a look. When you do that, when you exit the preview mode, you will see that it is no longer connected. So this window, this Tag Assistant window, is no longer connected to that website window where we were actually debugging and checking what is happening on the website. So if you see that this is not connected and you want to reopen the debug mode, you can click the reopen once again. And once you do that, it will reopen once again, and you see that debugger is now connected. So this window is connected to the preview and debug mode window. But if I close it right here, and then I close it right here, you will now see that my browser is not actively debugging any domains. And in fact, if I want to quickly reopen the preview and debug mode, I can do that right here, because there is like some sort of like a history. So this is also quite convenient. I can click on it, and then it will start to connect, and you will see that my debugger is now connected to the Tag Assistant right here. Once again, you see no errors right here. You see no errors right here. Also, this is that URL parameter that is added automatically by the preview and debug mode. So it helps Google Tag Manager to identify that this window is related to the actual debugging process. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about, but this is not the smallest one, this is actually really cool, is that you can enhance the experience of the preview and debug mode in Google Tag Manager by installing the actual Chrome extension, which is called Tag Assistant. I'm talking about this extension. And if you are interested, I will post a link below the video to this particular page. Now, speaking of the naming convention, this is quite confusing because we have a Chrome extension, which is called Tag Assistant, and we have the preview mode in Google Tag Manager, which is called Tag Assistant. So I don't know how Google is planning, or if they are planning to resolve this like naming conflict in some way. But what I wanted to show you is that if you install this extension, you will see some improvements, and actually they're quite convenient in the preview and debug mode of Google Tag Manager. So first of all, let's say that after I install the extension, I want to enable the preview and debug mode once again. So I click preview, then the new tab will open with tagassistant.com, tagassistant.google.com, and then if I click start, it will open a new tab instead of opening a new window. So this is a little more convenient, at least for me personally, because I hate when new windows are popping up. So working between tabs for me is better. But for example, if you're working with 2 different screens, you can move, let's say, this tab to one screen and this one to another screen. And if you see, there is like this icon. So this is very useful if you want to debug, let's say, 3 or 4 tabs. And if you want to quickly navigate between one tab and another, you can do that thanks to these little icons. So for example, in this case, I have a blue diamond. Now, if I open another link in a new tab, now I got the yellow circle. So right now I have 2 pages and they have 2 separate visual identifiers. And if I go to my preview and debug mode right here, you see those 2 symbols right here. So this allows you to faster identify with which page are you working. Therefore, I mean, the navigation between tabs and the debugging is a little faster. If I open, let's say, one more tab, I get one more icon right here, which is blue circle. And I see the blue circle right here. So if I want to debug this page, I can just quickly take a look at this icon, and then I know where to switch. And this makes my life a little easier. So that was a general overview of the preview and debug mode in Google Tag Manager, which is now called Tag Assistant. So I need to somehow get used to that new name. If you have been working with Google Tag Manager for a while, this is definitely something new, and you will have to force yourself and get used to that, because there is no way to switch to the previous version. This is how this will work from now on. And if you're watching this video in October 16th of 2020, you can actually hear thousands of Google Tag Manager videos and blog posts screaming because they suddenly became very much outdated, because the entire experience of the preview and debug mode has changed. But if you have just started working with Google Tag Manager and this is your first experience, then, well, welcome aboard. And if you need some other tutorials about Google Tag Manager, take a look at my YouTube channel and my blog, which is analyticsmania.com. All right, so now you should have a better understanding of what a Google Tag Manager preview and debug mode is and how to use it. Personally, I recommend also having Tag Assistant Chrome extension installed as well, because it makes the whole debugging experience even more convenient and straightforward. If you found this video useful, hit the thumbs up button below the video, because it helps me continue working on this channel. Also, if you want to learn more about Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics, consider subscribing to this channel. My name is Julius, this is Analytics Mania, and I'll see you in the next video.